What blows my mind, and we see this in the podcast space a lot, is just I think everyone's very quick to run ads to drive people to, like a landing page or a website. But then
Mhm.
there's not that much time spent on the actual landing page itself in the destination.
Of course, all the time. Or they're just driving to a generic demo page and the headline itself doesn't connect with the headline on your demo page. Like everything has to be all connected.
This is the Titans of Advertising podcast, an interview series where we go behind the scenes with some of the leaders, agency experts, marketers that have literally built up modern day advertising before there was a playbook for it. If you're a CMO, marketer, agency expert, or even a founder, this is where you can tune in to get the latest know-how of how to make advertising work for you. Brandon, amazing to have you on the show. We're so excited to chat to you. You've got so much experience in the B2B SaaS world, but before we dive in, I would love you to just introduce yourself. You do much better than I will about your experience and what you've done in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, appreciate it. So yeah, Brandon Redlinger. I've spent nearly my entire career in B2B SaaS. So selling solutions to other businesses and mainly selling to other marketers and salespeople and even RevOps too. But I think selling to marketers and especially salespeople is hard. Like I love it. It's a lot of fun, but it can be hard because they know the tricks, they know the secrets, and you have to be a little bit more like you have to be real, you have to be genuine, you have to build that trust. Went through the whole like early growth hacking, growth marketing, all the way to ABM. And I saw the rise of ABM when it was a big part of that at Engagio and then getting acquired by Demandbase and running ABM there. And then now we're into the age of like growth engineering and AI, right? Or GTM engineering and AI. So it's been a really fun journey and done a little bit of everything along the way.
And you were also at Chili Piper, right? Which
Yes.
was a pretty awesome story as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great crew over there, great product. And what I really appreciated about Chili Piper and the founders were their penchant and their desire to do more interesting, more fun, more engaging marketing, right? So it wasn't just your plain old boring B2B tactics. Let's go do something that people haven't seen before. Let's go make some noise. Even if it ruffled feathers, it was probably actually good that you ruffled feathers. If you didn't piss off someone by noon, you're not doing it right.
Okay, there you go. Get aggressive.
That's right.
Okay, so how did this all start for you? Like, I imagine you didn't just fall out of the womb and you were like, okay, this is the space that I want to be in.
Yeah, exactly. That's really an interesting way that I kind of fell into it. So when I was in college, I was in the health and wellness space. I was a certified personal trainer, certified health coach, nutritionist, all those things. And was going to school in Boulder, and of course, a mecca for health up in Boulder, Colorado. And what they don't tell you is how to actually get clients. So you get your certification and you think you've just got to hang your shingle up and clients come pounding down your door. In fact, it's the exact opposite. And it was a necessity for me to figure out how to actually get clients. So what were the things at my disposal? This was back like early Facebook days, and Facebook advertising hadn't even started yet, Facebook ads. And then, we can get into it a little bit later, but one of my early success stories was actually using Facebook ads. This is gosh, probably like 2008, 2009, a time period. So very early days of Facebook ads. But yeah, really didn't mean to get into kind of the business side of things, but I learned I had to go figure out how to get clients and then got really good at it. And then my friends in health and wellness started asking me, wait, how'd you do that? Can you teach me that? And I really just kind of let the health and wellness side of my business go and just started teaching how to do marketing, how to do sales, that sort of thing. So that
So
was kind of the
interesting.
start of it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Facebook ads used to crank. I even had an
Oh,
agency. I didn't even talk about it, but I had an agency way back in the day, and it was so interesting. People were running contests for leads, and then they'd get their likes up, and
yeah.
it's like an interesting way to build a base.
Yeah. And like Facebook in the early days, the big advantage was you could actually target your audience more narrowly and more targeted than you ever could before. And that was a huge unlock. That was a huge aha just for marketers in general. And I think that's of course, a good reason why Facebook was, such a revenue generating machine, or ads were such a revenue generating machine for them, right? So,
Yeah. So, okay, love to ask this one, but who gave you the most important piece of advice early on? And do you still believe that advice?
yeah, good question. Okay, probably early on, like if you guys aren't familiar with Dan Kennedy, he's got a lot of great. Actually, I don't know if he still publishes content, but he's got probably 20 something books out there, all on marketing and advertising and direct response and even sales. And I've got a bookshelf over there, and the top shelf is all full of Dan Kennedy books. But he says you have to be able to explain your buyers' pains as good as them, if not better. And once you do, they'll credit you with knowing the solution. And that was really like eye-opening. Like, okay, I really have to understand them. I really have to, get into their shoes, not just be able to talk about them and talk to them. It's really getting that full understanding of them. And that was probably one of the best pieces of advice that I still come back to today. I used that last week with a client.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the cornerstone. If you're selling to someone, you need to understand them, I guess. Okay, so when you go out and say this B2B SaaS company, they're growing, they're getting sort of to maybe enterprise type scale, or they're pretty big. If you have a couple $1 million to put on paid, do you put it on paid? How do you think about that? Is it case by case? What's your philosophy with this? And I know you've spent so much time, thinking about account-based management and everything there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it is case by case, and it really is what's the thing that best supports the business. I actually posted on LinkedIn this morning that I've got 2 clients, very different businesses. One playbook would fail for another one. In fact, everything that one client is doing, if the client B did any of those things, they would be failing, because one is true enterprise, $200 million dollars in revenue. They've been around for a while. Right, real big ACVs, a lower velocity. The other one's the exact opposite. Pre-seed company, they rely on high velocity, lower dollar value. So they have a much bigger TAM. So their play is less about ABM. In fact, I told them, look, you're thinking about ABM, don't do ABM. ABM is not your play. And there's ways to do ABM at scale more now than there was back when I was at Engagio, because of AI and all the tools that have spun up so that you can do, quote unquote, personalization at scale. But still, when it comes down to true ABM and these real enterprise deals, it's about the relationship as it is about the personalization, because you can fake personalization these days, or at least easier than you could before, but you really can't fake an actual relationship. So, company B, I told them, look, take those dollars and put it into your traditional meta ads and PPC. And the other company, we're not doing any of that. We're doing your more traditional ABM and channels where buyers are, and even influencer stuff right now. And the thought leader ads that you can do on LinkedIn is a great play for us right now. So yeah, it is case by case, and you really got to make sure the tactic actually matches the strategy for the business.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. I think paid acquisition, you can flush money down the drain real quick.
Yeah,
When you
totally.
have the funnel built. And we've been thinking a lot about this recently. What do you think you understand about this channel that no one else in the room kind of seems to see yet?
Oh, good question. I think a lot of things are changing right now in advertising. And just marketing in general. But man, I can't tell you how much I go back to some of the original lessons that I learned, and some of those original things from some of the classic, again, like the copywriters, the direct response copywriters, because like everyone says attention is so sparse these days, everything has to be so short, whether it's an ebook or a blog post or a LinkedIn post even. Whereas I'm still doing some real long form copy, and the long form copy is successful because it's the story that we're telling. It goes back to, right, like storytelling and really getting in the heads of your buyers and making them feel like you understand them. That's the biggest thing, right? People want to they want to feel understood. And a lot of what we do in marketing these days, we're just talking at people and trying to talk to as many people as possible. I'm sure everyone has a bias or probably against long form copy, but a lot of people still think of like the ugly landing pages and like the real kind of sleazy type
Comes
of like
first. That's what comes first in mind for me. Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then there was a reason why those sort of ugly landing pages worked, because ugly actually often outperformed the pretty one. But ugly these days means something a little bit different. Like ugly back then meant like, and we still see some of these, but it's like the numbers are circled, or the certain lines are underlined, and it looks like it's a handwritten underline, or it's like the yellow highlighted text, right? Like there still is some of that real ugly stuff, and arguably that still might work, but it doesn't have to be the prettiest landing page that you've ever seen. And I think even things like white space is underutilized on landing pages to help the flow. And even like kerning of your actual the spacing between the letters and the height letter of your letters and all of that stuff, like typography. I still pay attention to actual typography. Who pays attention to typography anymore? Probably more maybe brand marketers do, but not direct response. That stuff actually matters, right? The ease of readability on pages. But then you still have to know which are the things that you want your reader to pay attention to. So it might not be necessarily the circle with the red, marker, or the yellow highlighted text, like you took a highlighter and highlighted it, but there are still ways to make the right pieces of copy and the right pieces of your landing page pop out. So
I mean, it's fascinating, right? Like going back to sort of scientific advertising and those kinds of
yeah,
folks.
exactly.
This stuff has been seriously tested. Like it's pretty bulletproof for the most part. Yet, I think in our modern day media mix or our landing pages, we're using the Shopify's, we're using Webflow, like all of these
Yeah.
kinds of platforms, and no one's telling us this converts way higher than this other one, and so you just end up it being an afterthought. I
Yeah,
think.
because all they're doing is they're putting a template together and say, "Can I sell this template? Can I make some money off of someone who doesn't know anything about this to buy this template off of me?" But yeah, they don't. I mean, they don't make it easy, but maybe that's kind of the point. But it's just make it dumb simple for people to implement. But yeah, can you actually easily A/B test things, and can you actually set up an A/B test properly? And because a lot of people, they want to do multivariate tests, and as soon as you do multivariate tests, especially in B2B, where your volumes are a lot lower, you actually don't know what's working. You don't know what's affecting your outcomes. I mean, a lot easier to do when you have high volume and you're just throwing a lot of dollars at it. And then you can do actual proper multivariate tests and reach that statistical significance. But not B2B, that really is rarely ever the case.
Guesswork. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think.
Yeah.
I think just going back to like how things are evolving, I think in this day and age, the AI side of things, it's just so easy to build product. Like right now,
Yeah.
everyone's got a chat product
Yeah.
inside of their product, right? And I think architecting trust just becomes so much more important. And
Exactly, man.
I
Yeah.
think the relationship between the buyer and whoever's offering the service becomes critical. And I think what you look for is substance, and that might be to me. It's kind of like if I land on a website and it looks like Claude Code has just pumped it out,
Yeah.
then I'm thinking, okay, this is cool, but like, are these people really going to deliver on their promise? And are they going to be up late at night caring about my success or whatever? Or is this just sort of something that they've thrown up real quick to test and just so much noise? So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no, 100%. And like the other thing about B2B that I think about all the time is every single touch point that you have with your customer will inch them closer or further away from buying or renewing or advocating for you. And that's every single little thing. Right. So your web team might be great. They might have good design, but then maybe they get crappy emails from your email marketing team, right? So it may be one step forward, two steps back, or it could be even they're chatting with your bot on the website because, again, yeah, everyone has a bot these days because that's a commodity, and they have a really bad experience with your AI bot. Now it's not because of anything that you did, it's because of the vendor that you chose. And it's the technology and the way that you choose to interact with your customers. You just lost a little bit of trust and a few of those in a row, and then they're gone, right? So yeah, it's every single little touch point along the customer journey matters so much.
I've been in past companies where the sort of the email marketing team has not been talking too much to product, and then it just
Yeah.
like everything is kind of. I think the amount of emails that were going out was just astronomical, and it was like,
Yeah.
all right, we need to sort of do an audit here, but no one's owning it because everyone's owning their different space, and so you need someone to own it, and then it gets crazy.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing too about that is when you get larger organizations and you get those specialized functions, then each specialized function has their own metrics and KPIs that they got to hit, right? And for a lot of times for them, it's about okay, we got to drive a certain amount of meetings or opportunities from our email channel. So how do we drive more? Like, we just got to send more emails, right? And we run out of interesting things to say in the emails. So now we're sending crappy emails, and then people are opening them less and less, and then now we got to send more and more to hit our numbers, and it's just a continuous spiral.
So
But if
yeah, go.
I was gonna say but if everyone was talking to each other and there were more team goals, again, harder to do it at really large companies, but it's not impossible to do. How are all of your touch points and all of your channels contributing to your metrics, your leading metrics, your KPIs, and your actual marketing and business goals, right?
So, so the sales team's running behind on targets, the marketing team's running behind on targets. What do we do in this? wh- the easiest thing to do is to turn up the dial.
Yeah.
Like, why not turn up the dial? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think to me, that is an entirely an operations question and answer, right? It's like if we have our operations, our attribution, our tracking down properly, then we can actually go to the RevOps team or your marketing ops guys and say, or gals, and say, all right, what are the different stages throughout the buying journey? And then we're looking at volume, value, velocity, and conversion rate. And then of the stages within those metrics, where are we off? And and then you can also look at certain channels or certain geos once you're to a bigger, larger organizations, and you have your baselines. And then once you are looking at the trends over time, and I'm really big on visuals with your metrics and putting visuals on your dashboards, because you can easily see, your charts going like this, and then one might be like this, and it's like, okay, that's the problem right there. Whereas if you're just looking at numbers, it doesn't stick out to you as much. So yeah, if all of your tracking and your metrics are well established, you should be able to just do a little bit of detective work with your RevOps team and figure out, all right, what stage of the buying journey, and then you can start to look at, all right, what's the number that's going down? Is the value of volume, velocity, or conversion rate going down? And then is it by channel or geo or segment or vertical or anything like that? And then, because a lot of times when things like that happen, it can be a change in the market itself or a change to the way a platform runs, or it, our meta ads got disconnected for a day. And then now we're down and we're behind a day or something like that, right? Instead of at the end of the month going, crap, we were down. What happened? No one knows.
Yeah, you have some thoughts around trade shows and maybe the cost per acquisition there. This is something that I wrestle with heavily because those kinds of activations can be pretty expensive. I could say, let's not do that and let's run meta ads, or let's run a podcast YouTube ad campaign.
Mhm.
I'm curious to hear your point of view on this.
Yeah. Okay. So in general, I'm a really big fan of events. Like, events are coming back these days because people want experiences. And if we can deliver a great experience, then that builds that trust, that builds that relationship that matters a lot in B2B. However, I think there are a bunch of ways that people get events wrong. And the two big ways that I see people get events wrong are on not really considering everything, all of your team's time and resources that go into the events and necessarily what it's the opportunity cost of those. I want to go into the event knowing that I already won. And what I mean by this is I want to go in there already almost having hit my meeting number because I've scheduled this many meetings in advance. And then, right. And like, I think that's really hard to do because the sales team, they have their own number to hit and they don't get that pipeline or they don't get those opportunities right away. They have to wait till the event. But we need to start reaching out to these people a month in advance. Your marketing campaigns start a month in advance, right? Your ads will start much more in advance than the actual show itself. So, you really need to align with sales and get the actual individual reps bought into this in the first place, not just say, oh, by the way, we're going to Dreamforce next month. You guys now need to invite people. Events are one of those things. It's a lot of fun, especially if you're more of a social person. And I tend to be like that too. But like leading up to the event, it's like, oh, it's so much work. It's so much work. We're never doing another event again. And then the event happens and you're on your high and you're like, yeah, this was so much fun. We had so many great conversations. We're signing up for the next one right now. And then the next event comes around and you're like, shit, why did I sign us up for this? And like, you just go through the emotions over and over.
What advice to advertisers keep following that from firsthand experience is wrong?
Ooh, oh, gosh. Okay. This one goes back to what we were saying about volume, right? Like more. And we should be thinking about how do we do stuff better? Instead of how can we do more, how can we actually do less and hit our numbers? Like I'm really big on creativity from constraints. A thing I like to do with my teams is an exercise where we say, okay, total brainstorm, no judgment here, but we're just going to throw out ideas and I'm going to give you some scenarios and we're just going to spitball. No dumb ideas, no judgment on these whatsoever. If you start to judge any of these ideas, I'm going to slap your hand. And we're going to keep going with any dumb ideas. And I'm going to start with the dumbest ideas myself first. But it's okay, if we had to 10x our pipeline, what would we do? If our budget got cut by 1/10, we had 1/10 of our current budget, what would we do? If we had Tim Ferriss promoting our product, what would we do? Right? Like it gets you out of this thinking of how can we just incrementally get better and how can we actually 10x? And
what's an example that came out of that? Do you have one?
Yeah. Okay. So one of them, and this is a good example of don't judge because it was, we were going to an event. What could we do to get interest in this event? And the idea was, well, let's hire Pitbull. And it was like, yeah, yes, if Pitbull was at our event, 1000%, we would hit our attendee number for the event. But I'm not going to judge. And where we ended up landing was, okay,
Shakira.
Budget, there's no way.
Got Shakira. Yeah.
No, it was, we hired a Pitbull-lookalike and we turned it into a kind of a fun parody event. And we got a lot of people talking because it was, wait, is that Pitbull? That's not Pitbull. Do you guys see they're trying to get Pitbull over here, and it like turned into kind of this word of mouth thing where it started off as like, oh, wait, is he actually here versus, do you hear those guys? They're silly. They're funny. They're hilarious. They tried to get Pitbull. There's a Pitbull-lookalike and he's up there right now on stage and he's funny,
You could have said he's coming, but he couldn't make it. And so don't worry, everyone, we got a lookalike.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah, that's why I'm really big. And that was our best idea for the event. And it was because we went into that not judging people's ideas, right? It was, dude, like anything goes. And I remember that meeting because someone immediately shot that down. I was like, well, hold on. Like, yeah, of course. If I'm putting my rational, marketing leader brain on this, like, yeah, I'm just watching my budget go down the drain with that one. But we actually ended up making it work and we didn't have to blow our entire year's worth of budget on Pitbull to get maybe a 10th or a 5th of the percent if we actually had Pitbull there,
This is great. What about with paid acquisition? So you've got, Meta ads, LinkedIn ads, podcasts, all of that stuff. How do you make that work really well for B2B SaaS? I know like it depends on the right type of size and company and circumstance. But broad strokes, like how do you think about that? Because, you see a lot of B2B folks, they're trying to running ads to book into webinars.
Yep.
Everyone's got their own strategy. But yeah, I'm curious for those listening that, could be in an agency and thinking about, okay, how do we best support B2B and paid ag? Yeah, what would you say?
For me, when it really comes to like, business economics, all that stuff set aside, we need to make this work now. It's the best thing that you can do is your targeting. Be very clear with your targeting and have that very specific message to that very specific audience. And then if you have different audiences, instead of one message to try to appeal to everyone, you have very specific messages and you have your different ad segments and ad audiences that you're delivering those different messages to. So again, it's like it's going back to relevance to your individual specific person and making it sound like you're talking directly to them. And, and you're trying to get them again to feel understood. But if you're trying to throw out these blanket statements that try to capture your entire audience, no one's going to resonate with it. If you try to talk to everyone, you're essentially going to end up talking to no one. So it really is about the targeting. And I know there are specific, limitations. Like, for example, on LinkedIn, you need an ad audience of at least 300, but 300 compared to some of the, more traditional B2C stuff is like nothing, right? So I can easily find an ad segment of 300 tech CROs that I want to target. And then now I can actually deliver a relevant message to them. And then maybe I have 10 other audiences as well. And I've just, tripled my work to create the creative and the design and the campaigns themselves and the platform and the landing pages and the follow-up messages, but your results are going to be there. Like if you target them better and then deliver that relevant message, your results are always going to go up. And then the other thing too that people don't really take into consideration is like a lot of the intent signals that gives you. So they're clicking on certain ads and then they're landing on certain pages, and then you can get a good sense if all of your data is piped correctly and you can actually get insight into it. You can get a sense for the intent. So a lot of B2B companies, they're selling platforms with multiple solutions. And instead of pitching the full platform, sell one specific thing to them. They likely came to you for one specific use case. We got a lot of insight now based on your first party engagement data. And then if you're layering in, intent signals, third party signals, you can really get specific on have a really educated guess on what they are coming to you for. And then now you can start to have your outbound team go out to them with this very specific message. And that's another thing I'm really big on with B2B is don't sell the whole platform, sell the 20% that they care about most right now. Because it's only going to be 20%, right? Like most people who are using HubSpot, I mean, this is an old stat. HubSpot put this out probably like 5 years ago or something. But they said most of their customers only used 15% of their entire platform, right? And those customers are all probably happy. And they came to them for that 15% thing that they did, not, hey, I need all of these things that you do at HubSpot. I'm coming to you just for this specific thing. Sell me this one thing and I'll buy. And then from there, you can expand and hopefully you get them engaged and interested in other products, but not in the initial sale.
One thing that I've had discussions around recently is this idea of, like these vector type products, or maybe it's R2B2, where you can actually drive someone to a landing. Is that, yeah, right.
Deliver.
Absolutely butchered that.
That's fine. The product is equally as bad.
Right. But like, what about running paid ads? In the B2B SaaS world, you run paid ads, people hit the website, you get 30% of their LinkedIn's, and then it's like straight into the sequence and nurturing. Is that creepy? Have you seen it work? Is this stuff that you've discussed?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So a lot of my clients use something similar, whether it's Zoom Info's web de-anonymization. I forget exactly what they call it. Or there's another one. You mentioned Vector. I've used Vector. I've used Deliver, spelled without the E at the end of ER.
Of course.
.ai, of course, is at an AI, right? And where it does get creepy is if your message basically screams, "Hey, I saw you were on our website," and they're like, "Wait, you knew that I was on your website. You're spying on me. Like that's the feeling you kind of get. Whereas whether if you just go to them with a direct value, again, looking at the pages that they were on and their title, and you can make some educated guesses on the reason they're on your website. Now you're actually delivering a message to help them solve their problems, not, hey, I saw you on our website. Not that level of
Don't
creep.
tell them. Basically, don't tell them.
Yeah,
We've been creeping on you. Yeah. Okay. Makes
Exactly,
sense.
exactly. And I think it's different if it's I only slightly think it's different if it's like a demo page, or like they started to fill out a form and they didn't finish filling out the form, because they have the progressive forms now, not progressive profiling. The other one where it's like, put your email in first, and then on the second page, then it starts to ask you about something. Like I kind of like those, and I kind of don't. I do as a marketer. I don't as someone experiencing it, because it's a little like bait and switch. It's like, wait, I only have to give you my email. You put in your email, and then 5 more fields pop up. You're like, okay, well, you are gonna stalk me after this. I am gonna get a call from your SDR who's fresh out of college, who knows really nothing about me or my product or my company. I mean,
What do you think has helped you ascend in your role, your capability, and your impact versus others around you?
Oh, good question. Yeah, probably just curiosity and just my ongoing need to continue to learn and try stuff and test and iterate. Yeah, I do think that's probably that, and my like determination. I'm one of those that probably doesn't contribute to this household culture, but like I'm thinking about work all the time. Right? Like I'm always thinking, like, kids go down, or over the weekend we're out with the kids and I see something that sparks my, thought, and I'm like, shoot, like I gotta write this down. I gotta go send a message to someone at, one of my clients, because I have an idea for them. It's probably, kind of that never off. But again, it's always like always learning. I don't listen to any music. I only listen to podcasts. I listen to 2+ hours a day probably, and I listen to it on 2.5 speed. And it's just always, how do I learn more? How do I learn more? And then more more importantly than that is, how do I implement some of this stuff?
Yeah, I think that's always like the big challenge, right? You can sort of you can eat from the fire hose, but can you distill down the stuff that matters versus the stuff that doesn't, and what's worth retaining and what's not? And I think in like
Yeah.
this AI type world as well, I think like there's probably a good case for like letting go of retaining as much and just like knowing the things to ask to get
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
done.
exactly, totally.
What are you Speaking of that, what are you paying close attention to right now that maybe most people might not be focusing on or they could be ignoring?
Okay, good question. I mean, I think B2B is starting to catch up, but I think it's this idea of like pure driven, side of paid. And right, like it's the future of advertising isn't, gosh, I think it's like not as much paid, but it's peer driven, because buyers trust people more than brands these days. And but people still see companies, I should say, not people, companies that are putting a lot of budget into their paid channels instead of networking, communities, customer advocacy, and even influencer marketing. I'm really big on influencer marketing these days in the B2B space. And yeah, again, I think people are catching up, but I still think even their catch up is still sloppy. Right.
Uh,
And what I mean by that is I get people who reach out to me all the time, even brands that I actually really like and that I use, that want me to promote their product to my audience, whether it's on my newsletter or on LinkedIn. And some of them I get really excited about. It's like, yes, I love your product. I use it already. And they just want to do one off. Here's one campaign or one post that we want you to do. We'll pay you for this one post. It's like, okay, I don't think that, I mean, sure, it's better than nothing, but how about a long-term relationship with influencers and an ongoing campaign, not a lot of this one-off, two-off type thing. So yeah, I think about this like driven, or there's probably a word for it already.
mhm.
Yeah, I just think of like the real ad unit these days is recommendations from people that your audience already trusts, already knows, already recognizes, because a lot of influence really is invisible these days.
Yeah, I mean, personally, that's what I think is so exciting about the podcast space and YouTubers to some degree. Is
Yeah,
just
totally.
like their audience is just like they feel like they know you, and then as soon as something comes through, it's like, wow, yeah, like maybe I should really consider this. And,
Yep.
like I think people really struggle with the idea of, not having a thumb on a screen to click a button or whatever and think that it doesn't convert, but it can totally outperform all the other channels if you do it right. And it's interesting you talk about, just like the one off run two ads or whatever,
Yeah.
and the trade off between that and spending a lot of budget and learning what actually works really well. Because I know of, for a fact that the top buyers in the podcast industry, they don't buy unless they have insane amounts of conviction for various reasons, but they don't buy, 3-month sponsorships unless they've like tested the show before and maybe it's another client coming in if it's an agency setting, but they'll run a couple and sort of see, did we hit with the audience? And I think it's also just like, it's giving the influencer a chance to take that and really make it their own and their own recommendation. And I think like you see some influencers that they really do a good job. They really express themselves. They really get into, why this could be a great service for someone. And then there's others that just read from a script. And
Yeah.
so why would you want to go and sign an influencer when they could just read from a script and then you're locked in. And so, the more I see it, I'm like, wow, like these brands are spending like real dollars here. And I think that, as an influencer with an audience, it's kind of your job to do a good, do a good read or
100%.
like,
Yeah.
be convincing. And it's really disappointing when it doesn't happen from the advertiser end, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, like the perfect example of this is Tim Ferriss, and like everyone probably knows Tim Ferriss, right? And he's got one of the biggest podcasts out there, and he is ad supported, and he's very upfront about it. And he did an experiment where he actually stopped his advertising, and people actually liked it because with Tim, like it's just a different. Like I've been a long time. I've listened to him from the beginning of him launching his podcast. I was one of those who read his first book, The 4 Hour Work Week, and got hooked
Oh
ever
yeah.
since. That's back when I was starting to build my own business, right?
Yeah.
So I've been following him ever since. And like you can tell he genuinely likes and uses and believes in the actual products that he promotes. And, he calls it the hug of death. But when someone comes on to his podcast or when he promotes something in his newsletter, like they're going to fly off the shelf and you won't be able to keep up with demand and your website's going to go down and like all good things, right? But it could hurt a business if you're not actually set up for that. But it just goes to show that like someone like Tim has built that trust with his audience and he's promoting products that he uses and believes in, and it makes it all that much better and more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is amazing. Couple last questions for you while we go. Yeah. What would you want your chapter in, in your sort of like career book to say? Yeah. Like
And
what is important for you there?
oh, good question. God, I like these questions. They really make me think. They're not your standard podcast interview questions. I love it. I would probably say like, yeah, he was or is. I'm not going to write this like I'm dead now, right?
You can.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
totally
they're
can.
like genuine and thoughtful and helpful more than anything. Like, yeah, one again, like I'm never going to promote. I've done plenty of influencer stuff, although I hate referencing myself as an influencer, but I've done a lot of that. Well, I should say a lot. The ones that I've done are again products that I believe in. So I'm not trying to just use my audience to make a buck. It's like genuine and yeah, not fake, but also more than anything, I love helping other people out. I love teaching people. I love seeing people go from they're struggling with one thing or they're new at one thing to become really good, really awesome. So I take calls all the time, people earlier in their career or just need a little your advice or help or I mean, AI is the big thing right now, and I'm pretty on top of AI and Claude Code and how I set up my entire business running on Claude Code. People ask me a lot of questions around that. So I try to help out where I can, but I also write a lot about it on LinkedIn so that other people can listen to it and learn a little something from me. So yeah, it's about being true and genuine and also helpful at the same time.
Every phase, every sort of era in history has like new roles that are formed and new ways of operating.
Mhm.
What does the CMO look like in 5 years?
Well, good question. I think the CMO is going to have to be a little bit more technical, AI savvy, and it's knowing how to set up the systems for their teams than necessarily. Like I don't think you need as much technical depth or depth within a specific discipline within marketing, but you have to know how to use the systems and use AI so that you can run your system, your different disciplines effectively, right? So I used to be, I mean, I still relatively am a big fan of like the T-shaped marketer. I don't know if you've heard of that one, or T-shaped career person, right? There's like,
All right. Yeah.
you go broad with a lot of topics, but go really deep on one of them. I don't even think you have to go deep anymore, but as long as you stay really broad, because there are tools, there's AI, there's skills, there's agents that can help you go deep on every single thing. You just need to know yourself how to orchestrate all of those together and build your systems around them. And you just need to hire maybe one person to manage your entire demand gen funnel, one person for your entire ARPR function, one person for corporate comms, So I think it's that the org itself has changed, and the CMO, him or herself, have to really adapt to that way that, yeah, you're going to have probably be managing more agents than you are people in the future.
Yeah. Hot take from my end. I think that marketing is just going to be more and more prominent in the way that you communicate and influence an audience, because I think that marketers are going to be able to develop their own products.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my hot take is that marketers are in a huge power position right now because they have the ability to influence a wider audience to buy something, for lack of a better word. And what was historically a huge challenge is product. And I think that like building a product or building a service is going to become like a lot easier. And I think it's going to come down to, okay, now we've got the thing. We know what the thing needs to be. How do we build trust and convince the market that this is actually real, that this is something you should pay attention to and use? And this, so my background's in product, right? And I'm actually thinking that product management is sort of dead in a sense, because it's an intersection between product and marketing that's going to be so powerful moving forward, and that's going to shrink these teams dramatically.
I think it's going to shrink teams. I also think just the role of product and developer and engineer is almost going to be combined into one with everything that AI can now do on the development side of product, right? Like, do you need a PM and your engineer and like all these different, I don't know as much about like the product side of things, but right, like I think that's going to shrink faster than the go-to-market side, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you so much, Brandon. As always, it's fun chatting and jamming and learning from you. If anyone wants to connect with you, what is the best way?
Yeah, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where I am the most active. If you connect with me, send a little message that said, yeah, I heard you on Tons of Advertising podcast with Cam. And I'm way more likely to even see your connection request if you put that in the message, because otherwise I don't see them as much. I get a lot of them, and I just kind of, if there's no message, I'll scroll right past it, to be honest.
Don't say that you saw him on your website, and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, unless he was close to checking out. That's okay.
Yeah. I noticed, Brandon, you started to check out, but you left something behind.
There you go. That's the whole one. We'll end it with that. Well, thanks so much, Brandon. It's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Cam. Yeah, I appreciate it.